Hello everyone. In this presentation, let's look at how to create a winning resume. I will talk about some time-tested strategies that have worked well for all. The first thing you need to remember about your resume is this. It is a marketing document. It is not a biography. Remember, you are selling yourself to the recruiter. Your resume is being viewed among several others. Merely listing your bio data will not help. You need to make the case as to why you are the best person for the job. Here's an important fact. On average, recruiters spend about 6 to 10 seconds scanning a resume. They look for an initial match or mismatch in those 10 seconds. If you get the nod in those 10 seconds, your resume moves to the next stage. Otherwise, it is declined. Let that sink in for a moment. So, if you are given just 10 seconds, how will you market yourself? What you need to make an elevator pitch about yourself. We will look at that shortly. Here's another important fact. A job posting on LinkedIn or any popular job portal today gets hundreds, if not thousands of resumes. How so, you may ask? Well, online job applications have made it easy for people to apply to jobs. First, anyone can access it from anywhere at any time. And second, the process is so easy, you just upload your resume, fill out a form online and click on apply. So how will you make yourself stand out in the crowd? Look at keywords in the job description. Tailor your resume to the job description. Highlight how you meet the key requirements. This is what I mean when I said elevator pitch in the previous slide. Imagine you met someone in an elevator who is hiring for this position. How will you convince them in the 10 seconds that you spend with them on the elevator that you are the right person for the job? Many people make the mistake of creating a generic resume that tries to explain everything they have done. Unfortunately, those days are gone. Recruiters today look for people who are uniquely qualified for doing the job. This means, you need to tailor your resume to the job description. In other words, you need to fit the job description to a T, in order to be considered. The use of AI tools to create resumes has become very popular. Everyone is using ChatGPT or an AI resume creator these days. But, a word of caution. If you use AI, use it very sparingly. AI systems can certainly embellish your resume, but it can come at a cost. Remember, AI can distort facts. It can exaggerate your achievements to make you look good. Get suggestions from AI, but write your resume in your own words. Recruiters can find out if a resume is created through AI. If it doesn't pass their sniff test, then your resume goes to the dustbin. So, what can you do to avoid this? The best way is to avoid using AI altogether. But if you do use AI, double-check for accuracy and truthfulness of all the statements made by AI. One way to convince recruiters that you mean what you say is by providing links, references and so on. Needless to say, your resume must always be grounded on facts. Keep your LinkedIn profile up to date. Recruiters often check your LinkedIn profile to see how it corresponds to the application you sent them. If you are actively looking for work, make sure you set your status on LinkedIn to reflect this. This makes your profile show up on recruiter searches. Next, let us get to the visual aspects of a resume. The first thing you should do is to pick a good template. There are thousands of resume templates available. I will attach some links below this video in the description section. But if no template works for you, just create a simple, elegant resume. A good way to start your resume is with your name, followed by an appropriate tagline to describe yourself. Here are some examples. Samantha Williams, entry-level Python programmer. Venkat Krishna, software engineer with Microsoft certifications. John Smith, accomplished healthcare professional seeking a leadership role. Now, let us talk about the visual aspects of the resume, such as fonts and sizes. The overarching theme in all of this should be to focus on readability. One recommendation is to use sans serif fonts that go from large to progressively smaller sizes. Be consistent in the fonts for role, dates, descriptions. Use one font throughout the resume. Avoid excessive use of bold, underline, or colors. In fact, it would be best to avoid colors altogether. Use your word processor's built-in font templates for title, subtitle, body, etc. So once you apply them in one place, they get applied everywhere in your resume. If there's one thing you can take away from this slide, it is this: avoid anything that is flashy or fancy looking. A simple, elegant resume is all you need. A very useful line in your resume is the footer. You can use the footer to add your contact details. For example, you can include details like email address, phone number, your LinkedIn URL, and page numbers. Doing it this way will save you some real estate in your resume that you can use for other things. A question that often comes up is, how long should the resume be? In general, a short resume is recommended. Ideally, it should be 1 or 2 pages long. Remember, it is a marketing document. You need to say only as much as you need to, and nothing more. Again, the clue here is to look at the job description. List only the accomplishments that are relevant. But, you may say that many tech jobs require the applicants to provide lots of details about their projects. How can you fit all of these in 2 pages or less? That is certainly a valid question. One way to address this is through the use of supplemental attachments. Add the additional accomplishments and career history as supplements. Include supplemental attachments in support of your application, only if needed. This way, you can use your main resume to make yourself stand out with a strong elevator pitch. And you can use supplements to boost your application and provide facts to corroborate your statements in the main resume. A common mistake beginners make in describing their projects is this: they describe the project, but leave out what their role was in the project. Make sure this does not happen to you. Sometimes, beginners use we to describe what was done in a project. This conveys the impression of a team. When recruiters see this, they often ask, what was your role in the team? So, use words such as led, managed, designed, and so on to highlight your contribution in the team. A very powerful way to describe your projects is through the STAR format. STAR stands for situation, task, action, and result. Think of it this way. Every project must tell a short story in 4 lines. It should start with a situation, describe the pain point and possible solutions, and end with what you did to solve the pain. Let me explain. What is the situation? Briefly describe the context or background of the situation you faced, including the organization, job title, and relevant dates. What was the task you were given? Clearly define your responsibilities and goals within that situation. What were you tasked with achieving? What was the action that you took? Detail the specific actions you took to address the situation and achieve your task. Use action verbs and provide concrete examples. And finally, what was the result? Quantify the positive outcomes of your actions. What impact did your work have on the company or team? Remember, always try to quantify your achievements using numbers. This gives the recruiters an easy way to understand the size and scope of your accomplishments. Another common mistake beginners make is to make their sentences very long. Avoid verbosity. Keep your sentences short and sweet. If you need to, use bullet points. But here again, avoid excessive use of bullet points. A common rule of thumb is 5 plus or minus 2 bullet points per section. Take a look at the example shown here. On the left side, we have a very long sentence. On the right side, we show how it can be shortened and expressed in 2 bullet points. It is okay if you leave out a few minor details. If your statement is interesting, the recruiter is bound to call you and ask more about it. That's when you add the minor details. Don't forget to include a section on your hobbies and extracurricular activities. But, be cautious on how deep you go into this section. Sometimes, it is useful to show the recruiter your breadth and creativity. On other occasions, it is best to keep this short and not look like you are adding filler sections in your resume. Again, the clue here is to look at the job description or the company you are applying for. Here's a clue. If the role describes something like a self-starter, a creative person, a person who needs to wear multiple hats, or a person who has to work well under ambiguity, then you should speak to this in this section. Finally, proofread everything. Print out the resume and see how it looks on paper. Read and reread every line to see if there are typos or grammatical mistakes. A common fact is that these mistakes will be easily skipped by the writer. But they almost always will be noticed by the reader. I have shown a couple of common mistakes here, with the correct way to say it. A note on tech resumes. Technical recruiters today look for skills. They also want to know how hands-on you are. So make sure you mention these in your resume. For example, you could highlight projects and mention the skills you brought to the project. You could highlight your professional certifications. Sites such as Credly.com let you store all your certificates in one place and share a link to your recruiters. You could even mention links to your public code repositories. Software developers who have made contributions to open source projects should mention them here. Finally, here are some additional touches you can give to your application. The first is to write a cover letter. This is an opportunity for you to speak personally to the recruiter and tell them how you are the best person for the job. The next is to add supplemental documents, such as your certifications, references, and anything else that is relevant to the application. And last but not the least, is a video profile. Again, use this sparingly. Sometimes, recruiters will prefer to see a video profile to evaluate your communication skills. If you do make a video profile, keep it short to under a minute or two. That's all I have in this presentation. If you liked what you heard here, please do give a like to this video. And, do look out for my additional presentations on career tips. And a big thank you for listening.